Right away. Welcome the day after a break. We know how crazy it is in your buildings. So we appreciate you being here and also understand that you probably have several things going on. So as always, it will be recorded to share with anybody who is not able to be here with us today. So what we're going to do is we have the agenda linked into the chat. So if you want to open it up, that would be great. Wanted to go through a couple things with you. You can see what our objectives are today. And the first thing that we want to work on doing is we are going to have a poll, and it's going to be in the Trials Mentor User Group discussion board. And what we want you to do is reflect upon what role are you really engaging in at this time in the past month. So if you recall, we do have a list of the trial mentor roles and responsibilities where all of these different roles are described. So if you could take a minute or two and log in and go into the Trials Mentor User Group, and you can go to the discussion board and you will be able to see the poll, that would be great.
Christine, do you want me to share the poll page?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you, Michelle.
You're very welcome. So I'm gonna share the poll and we'll see which role have most of your mental responsibilities aligned to over the past month. So that's the question that we're asking everyone to answer. And there we can start to see the votes. So you can see, okay, we got a lot of planners, facilitator, a data guide, a learning leader. So once again, let me just show you, if you land on the discussion board, you do your voting. If you want to see all the votes, you click on the live link with the names of people that have voted, and you can see all the votes by having that pop out. So now we have 8 votes. Well, you can tell that, you know, some of the things that are important to the role is absolutely the planning component, as well as facilitating and being that data guide and continuing to be that learning leader for our teams as they continue on their journey with the trials. So thank you all for taking the poll. If you are just joining us and haven't had a chance, the poll will remain open. I'm going to stop sharing and turn it back over to Christine.
Great. So we're going to go back to the agenda, and I'm going to pop that up here. We're going to give you a few minutes to complete the project partner to-dos. And so I just want to remind everybody again what some of those things are. We have the project partner agreements, and we have the schools that are listed that have completed that. We appreciate the ones that have been completed, and we also encourage those of you who have not been able to complete it yet, please go into that agreement and fill it out and then send it back to us. The partnership agreement is really important because that allows us to be able to share the data and really create the story and share the story of how this project is having an impact in the schools that are engaged in it. And that's really important to help bring that to DPI so they understand the impact of this work. So if you have not been able to do that, you can click on that link and fill that out and return to us. The other piece, though, is that participation log, and this is really important as well because this helps provide the data that we are going to be sharing as well with DPI. So if you have not been able to complete that, you could click into that and fill out the information for your school. That would be great. And then the other thing is we also need to make sure we understand how you are collecting your data and have access to that data. So if you are using the My Impact and you already completed that work, we are able to see that. That would be great. If you have decided to use a different template or a data collector template, we ask that you can use the one that is linked in here. Keep in mind, we are not keeping that up to date. That would be an internal document for you to work on. But if you do use that, we ask that you make a copy and then you share editing rights to Joe and Michelle so that we can access that data when it's time for us to provide that to DPI. And we have 10 minutes on the clock to give you for work time. So we're gonna start that time. If you have any questions, just pop it in the chat.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for taking some time to work on our project partner agreement. We, again, have a desire to be able to report timely our information to the department, and with your help and your information, that allows us to stay on track as well. So we really appreciate you taking the time during our meeting to complete some of these tasks. We're gonna quickly move on. And one of the things that I wanted to kind of introduce you to is the idea of resource sharing. We had 7 people take the mentor survey and their exit ticket at the end of the November meeting. And one of the things that we heard in that survey is the appreciation for having some resources to take away from the meeting, to continue to help build the understanding of UDL, but also resources that might be helpful with the trials as your teams are working through that process. So what I want to do is just take a few minutes to introduce you to some additional UDL resources, and then we're going to put you in a breakout room so you can do your own resource share. If you have some resources that you've been using the past month or a couple weeks actually since our last meeting, and you'd like to share those with others, that would be great. If you have not necessarily had anything new and you want to explore some of the resources that we're sharing today, you will have some time to do that. So there are 3 resources we wanted to share. The first one is 10 UDL tips for designing an engaging learning environment. This is a wonderful resource from CAST that looks at the learning environment and how to provide multiple means of engagement. It gives you some quick tips. So you'll see a little description, then a try it, and then some reflective questions that you can use. So we've really found this to be a very user-friendly resource that, again, is dedicated to thinking about that learning environment. So again, this is 10 tips for designing an engaging learning environment, all wrapped around UDL. The other resource that I wanted to share is some tips for designing learning experiences. So CAST has some tips for designing learning experiences, and you'll notice that these are also aligned with the experiences that we're highlighting in the trial, like starting with a clear goal. So you get a little descriptor, you get an example, and you get some ask yourself questions. So again, just really helpful tools for teachers as they're thinking about their classroom and designing lessons for the learners that they have. I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to Kim. She's got an excellent resource that I think will be very interesting for you. So Kim, take it away.
I got it. For those of you that have been dabbling in different AI tools, the one I want to talk to you about today is Brisk. My good friend Jake over there on the screen, I can see him right there. If you are not subscribed to his Tuesday Tech Tips, you are missing out. So reach out to Jake if you want to get on that list. But Brisk is one of my favorites right now because it's a Google Chrome extension, so it lays right on top of your Google Docs, your videos, your web pages in order to create things. So a lot of our other tools You actually have to copy and paste what you want the AI tool to look at, whereas Brisk lays right on top. So one of the things that they do have as an option within there that you can create is a UDL lesson plan. And it will lay on top of a web page, or let's say you have a YouTube video that you wanted to use within your classroom. You could tell Brisk, the AI tool, to create a UDL lesson plan off of that YouTube video. And then it's going to take the multiple means of representation, engagement, and action and expression and insert them directly into the lesson plan. So it's taking some of that thought around the design of the lesson and incorporating it in simply by using that tool. And as with anything, you're going to want to check it over with any of our AI tools, but it gives you a great starting point. So I think we have it linked in there, if you are interested to look at it, and that's just one piece. Right now, it's probably my favorite tool for also, taking web pages and changing the reading level, or even, changing the language for your multilingual students as well. So
Kim, would you do a quick demo?
do a quick demo. I will do a quick demo.
Thank
I was
you.
unprepared.
I know, I'm putting her on the spot, everyone, and it's my fault, but she did a quick demo with me as we were looking at different AI tools, and it was like seconds.
Do you
And
want me to demo the UDL lesson plan?
yeah,
Okay.
I think it's, yeah. So it was seconds, and this lesson plan had a nice footprint of UDL in it.
Okay, so I don't know how this is gonna work right now because I didn't have a document open already that was ready to go. But as you can see, since I'm in a Google Doc and it is a Chrome extension, my little B here down in the corner is that Brisk tool. So when I click on it, I can see different things that I can do here. This is where I could change the level. One of the things that I love about it, when you click on change level, is it'll tell you what level the document is currently in, whether it's in a 5th grade level or whatever level. So it will analyze the document that you're sitting on top and tell you right away what level it is in, and then you can either bump it up or bump it down. But I'm gonna go and click on create here. And when you see create, you can see all of the different things that you are able to create. If you're working on DOK level questions, if you want a spiral review, any of these things are in there as well. And then I'm going to click on UDL lesson plan. And then you can actually just tell it here which standards and grade you would want to create that lesson plan from. So you could create it off of a web page. If it's sitting on a web page, you might tell it that you want it to create a UDL lesson plan off of that web page. Or right now I'm in 5th grade and it says 50 minutes. So I'm going to go in and I can select my standards. So I'm actually going to select Wisconsin standards. I'm going to stay at math. I'm going to go to 5th grade. And then here I can select a strand. So I'm going to go to geometry. And then I'm going to select this geometry standard. I'm just going to select the top one for purposes of demonstration. And then I'm going to click on done. And you can see right here, I have a UDL lesson plan. What should the lesson plan cover? I'm not going to type into that right now, but if I had a specific lesson that I wanted to cover for the day, I would type in maybe some more specific instructions about that particular day. But I have that standard inserted in there on using a pair of perpendicular number lines to define a coordinate system. And then I have it set for a 50-minute lesson. And then, oh, no, that's gonna ask me to create. And then I'm gonna click on brisket and it's going to, hopefully you'll be able to see it. Oh, it's adding it right into my document. Okay, so I needed to open a brand new Google Doc, but it's adding it into this. I will take this out, but all of you can see it now, which is great because it's right in the agenda. But you can see it's inserting those multiple means of engagement, those UDL pieces right into the lesson plan. This would give you a great starting point and this is on fractions. So, okay. So this is what happens sometimes when you aren't ready to demo this, but it's on, it's on fractions right now. But if you have it open to a brand new Google Doc, it will just insert that into it. What I love about this too is when you take that lesson plan, you can add on to it. You can add on a quiz. It will actually create multiple choice quizzes or short response, long response after that lesson plan as well. And if I select multiple choice here, 10 questions, it gives you a choice of adding it on to my current document, as well as it will actually create a Google form quiz for you as well. Okay, but I'm not gonna demo that because I wasn't ready.
Kim is always ready, and I like the authentic experiences when it's like, let's just pick a standard and demo this instead of something that has been prior or prepared and previously. So again, Kim, thank you so much, but I do think there's a lot of value in risk and just looking at how might you take a lesson plan or one of your team members that you're mentoring, how might they take their lesson plan, look at the UDL footprint and really start thinking about how do we build that into our lessons on a regular basis.
I linked that risk lesson that was generated into the agenda.
Alrighty, so we're gonna give you about 10 minutes or so in breakout rooms to share any of the tools that you're using, any resources that have been helpful, or to explore some of the resources that we've shared with you today. All right, so welcome back, everyone. Hopefully, as you rejoin our big group, you've had a chance to either collect some nice resources from one another or actually explore the resources that were shared with you this prior to the breakout rooms. So we're just going to ask each room to give us a little update. What did you talk about? What was shared? How do you think you might use it, etc. So opportunity for us to get a little bit of our collection of resources at the forefront. And then we will also ask that any new resources that you shared, we're gonna ask you if you would post those so everyone has access to them. So we'll do that after we break out or hear from our breakout rooms, excuse me. All right, so room one. I think it was Mercedes, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. All right, so room one, can you let us know what resource you shared or what you thought at least was a little bit of exploration for you?
Actually, Sherry had the resource. It was about access points and helping kids all have access to doing the things that we're asking them to do.
Awesome. Thank you. Sherry, other things to share?
Nope, that's pretty much what we talked about.
Okay, great. Thank you. Breakout room two.
It's like that was, breakout 2 was Sean and Wendy from Gillette and Leah from Baldwin Woodville.
We just shared where we were on our journey with both of the districts, and we talked about in Gillette how instead of making it a bunch of things, we kind of talked about how we're tying everything into the UDL process with EE, with planning. It's kind of by having our whole district do it, it's like UDL for our staff. Like if it's good for all of us, it's good for them too. No, Sean?
Yeah, and yeah, and then we talked a little bit like for resources, what we're using in each of our districts related to AI, like Brisk or Magic School, to help facilitate the planning and around a UDL aligned lesson plans like was demonstrated.
Thank you. 3,
3 was Jake and Tim.
Jake and Tim.
And we had an AI assistant in our room with us too. I had,
Who knew, right?
yeah, I started by telling Jake that like we've been using ChatGPT for some things and that I had added Brisk to my Chrome, but I hadn't really putzed around with it yet. And he very kindly showed me some workarounds in the free version and some cool stuff that's in there. So I think that we can put that to good use for sure.
Awesome.
And that's probably worth sharing with the group. If you don't pay for Brisk, what Kim demonstrated, that paid version has that built-in UDL lesson plan. But if you don't have the paid version, that I think is hidden behind a paywall. That's the way a lot of these ed tech tools work. They'll give you some stuff for free, but make you pay for some. But the workaround is just in your prompt. Say that you want to develop a lesson plan or an assessment or whatever it is using the UDL framework, and it'll do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And room 4.
Looks like that was Scott, Rachel, and Katie.
Yeah, hi. So we spent a little bit of time just talking about the overall process and kind of where we're at in the trials. I would just lift up, and I think it was Sean that mentioned it, but Magic School is one that I know that I've worked with staff, because one of the things that we talked about with Nina getting onto the process is just some of the teachers that just like to think sometimes like it's another thing that I have to do and another thing I think I need to think about. So how much some of these tech tools can really help to lift that load and then make the time seem like less of a constraint in some of these trial processes.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. Well, what we really appreciate is you taking some time to even connect with one another and share some shortcuts and ways that you've used different resources. We appreciate the opportunity to continue sharing and finding resources that can both generate some really wonderful information for you through AI, or using resources from CAST and other UDL prominent organizations that can really bring that perspective to your discussions with your teams, and also to the designing learning and designing lessons. So with that said, let's dive right into the check-in for today. So I'm going to share screen again, and I want to give you an opportunity to think through a few things. For our check-in, we are going to focus on part 5, stage 4, which is lead the work. This is in the mentor toolkit. So again, we have a link there. And if you click on the link, you should see the lead the work page pop up. We're going to ask you with your teams, and again, we're going to put you with your colleagues. So if you're together with a team of people here or a number of people here, we're going to put you in those rooms with each other. But one of the things that we want to do is give you an opportunity to find the link to the trial planning meeting example agenda and facilitation notes. We are going to ask you to read through the example with your breakout group and discuss how this resource has been or could be helpful in your trial 1 planning meeting. And if you've already had your trial 1 planning meeting, we'd ask kind of talk through what have been the glows and the grows that you have gone through with your first meeting. So again, we're going to put you in breakout rooms. I was thinking it would be helpful for you to be with your own team members, but perhaps
I think it's better random.
Yeah,
Random.
perhaps random is better so that you have an idea from other folks as well who may be at a different point in the process. So did I just,
Nope, that was what I had.
all right, awesome. So clearly, we are going to give you an opportunity now to reconnect with some other mentors and talk through this resource, read through the example, and please let us know how you think this could be helpful or how it has been helpful for you. All right, are you ready, Christine?
Yep. I'm opening
Okay,
all the
so
rooms.
we will see you back in about 15 minutes. In the spirit of being efficient, we're just gonna ask each room, so there were 3 breakout rooms, each room to just one key takeaway from your conversation. And then, once we have our key takeaways from the conversation, we're gonna take a 10-minute break, let you kind of regroup, stretch, and then we'll be back for the last part of our agenda. So, how about we start with room 3? Someone from room 3, a takeaway from your conversation.
Room 3 was Katie and Sean and Wendy.
Hi, all right. So I think again, we were talking about kind of the process and where we're at. And so we had 2 of us from Gillette and who are currently in our trial 1. And we talked about the planning meeting, which Wendy talked to more because I was not at that planning meeting, but that went well. But we talked a lot about how we're trying again to tie everything into UDL that we are doing and streamline it so that people don't feel like it's another thing, but it's more of an umbrella over everything that we're doing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And we agree that if we can make those connections, certainly it doesn't seem or feel as overwhelming. All right, how about room 2?
That was Jake, Mercedes, Cherry, and Mike. Cherry and Mike.
We talked about some common standards. The science team at Two Rivers is focusing on inquiry and evidence-based, so claim evidence reasoning. We talked about the cross-content opportunities there, is where we're at in the process, working on proficiency scales and rubrics for those right now and having teams craft those. And so even though it's the Two Rivers science team, we talked about how they could look at the social studies standards because there's some overlap there, and use the different grade bands like K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12 to help them develop those proficiency scales for those essential standards.
Awesome, excellent, thank you. And finally, our first breakout room, room 1.
I can talk for our group. So
Thanks, Rachel.
we had some kind of sharing of how we were organizing things as the mentors for our groups. One of us put the agenda in a Canvas slides to make the presentation like that. And then he was putting the coaching questions in just the speaker notes. And I thought that was super way to do that. And then another team member shared that they were storing all of the materials or resources in a Google Classroom. And how that would go, and we use Canvas, so I could see how that could be, how we could adapt that at Nina as well. And then the other one was a glow was great conversations they had around a similar standard. And someone also talked about how they shared the information with their admin team. And yeah, so lots of great ideas.
Awesome.
So it was good for me. I got to take away.
All right, well, thank you all. We hope to give you as many opportunities as possible to connect with one another, both folks that are in your district with you, but also have some opportunities to learn and share with other mentors from other districts. So we are going to take a break and we will see you back in 10 minutes. So at 10:20. We will get back together and walk through the remainder of our agenda. Thank you. We'll see you in a bit.
All right, well, we are finished with our break. We're going to move into the second part of our agenda where we differentiate for the two groups of people here. And by our assessment, we have only one continuing mentor with us today, which would be Mike. So for the rest of the agenda, we're going to go through part 5, stage 5. And I invite Mike, if you want some additional support of any sort, you can talk to Michelle here for a little bit, just a private messenger or through the chat so that you can set that up. And then for the rest of us, I'm going to be walking us through part 5, stage 5 a little bit with the data analysis tool so that we can see what the trial 1 data analysis tool looks like. So when you get to that part, you will have some familiarity with it and you will be able to plan for that in your trial 1 data collection window. So let me start out there. I'm going to jump into part 5, stage 5 of the UDL mentor toolkit. And in there, again, we have the 4 sections of our stages here. And in the Learn the Stage, you'll see a big overview of what the steps are. Again, it's taking care of that agenda to make sure communication is clear. Then you're going to prepare the data analysis tool, and I'm going to show you an example data analysis tool so you see what it looks like when it's finished. So as you prepare that and that you plan for that, then you will be ready to help where you see them deviating from what it should look like. One of the things that is really helpful in your planning is to review the team data collector tools, whether it's in My Impact or whether it's the data collector tool, the sheet space data collector tool, because there's oftentimes individuals on a team may not have put all of their data in. So that'll help you gauge whether you need to put some time aside in your agenda for folks to be able to put data into the tool. That is less of a problem if you're using My Impact because it will automatically do all the calculations. If you're using the data collector tool and you don't have somebody in your district that's able to make those formulas that make all of that work instantaneous and very easy, you're going to have to take that into account for how you're going to do the statistical analysis on all of those data observations that haven't been entered into the tools if you come to that analysis meeting and there's some folks that haven't put their data in. So just be aware that there's a little bit difference between how you need to be prepared for whether you have a data collector tool or My Impact. You're all seeing my screen, right? Yep, you are. Okay. So then again, run the meeting and there's helpful information in the Grow as a Mentor, Learn the Stage and Grow as a Mentor parts of the mentor toolkit and the lead the work and then know when to adjust. All right, so let me jump into just a little background on the analysis process is built off of the WISE Explore data inquiry process. So this is just a really quick overview of that. So there's 4 steps in the framework for data analysis in the WISE Explore system. One is starting with a question, posing that question about the data. And the questions in the data analysis tool focus on student engagement, that academic focus area, and student group. So those are the big pieces that you'll be looking at. The investigate part is where you're going to be pulling some information from your data tool to be able to analyze, noting only the facts about that data. So we're not doing really any interpretation at that point. You're going to clarify through those data statements and summarizing those findings. And then finally, the hypothesis part is the reflection on when teachers reflect on the practice that they've put into place, they are going to propose some explanations about how that might, those data might be explained by the changes in those practices. So I will invite you to, get rid of that, invite you to think about those 4 steps as we look at the example data analysis tool. So you can click on this link here, and that will bring you to the example that's also in the toolkit under those tools and embedded in the part 5, stage 5 of the toolkit. And this is going to look the same for whether you are using this for trial 1, trial 2, or trial 3. So I have areas highlighted in kind of that purple pink here. And that's what you're going to be preparing as you prepare the data analysis tool. You'll be putting whether you're in trial 1, trial 2, or trial 3. So for right now, we're in trial 1. So as a preparation, I would enter the number 1 before I put the link into the agenda for my teams to be able to make a copy of for themselves. And that way I'm reducing the amount of work that those teachers in those teams do. So I try to do as much of the work as I can, so I have more time for them to do the important work of looking at their data. But I don't put any of the changes or statements in there, other than we do have some sentence starters in there. So here we are with that step 1 of the WISE Explore Inquiry Practice, the question. So how has student engagement changed with the implementation of new practices? And this is where we want folks to look at the consolidated data first. So I'm going to open up my impact, and I know that not everybody's using my impact, but this is where I can show you where I'm getting the data for this information. So I'm just going to choose my example conference district here. The high school, I'm going to choose the elementary actually, and the example there. And when I go to reports in your data collector, you are going to be creating all of these reports in that data collector by doing the statistical analysis that has that helpful tool to help you understand how to do that data analysis also in the tools. So I'm going to be looking at the consolidated data analysis here. And right now I'm on all teachers on a team. And when I look at all teachers, now if you're in trial 1, you wouldn't have any data in trial 2 or trial 3, but I do have my baseline and my trial 1 data. So I'm just going to toggle back and forth here so that you can see. I'm going to look first at changes for all students. And again, there are some helpful sentence starters down here, and I would have prepared by putting trial 1 down here. So I'm going to baseline to trial 1. So I'm already preparing these sentence starters for my teams so that they don't have to go through the cognitive work of trying to, like, are we baseline to trial 1? Are we trial 2 to trial 1? Or so I put that in so that they don't have to think about that. So I'm looking for changes for all students. And in my impact, this is where I would choose all students or any of those demographic groups. And I want to do comparisons of the percent threes and fours row. So this is the same in the data collector. We're going to be looking at the changes of those observations from the percent of observations that are deemed a 1 or 2 rubric level into a 3 and 4. We don't have enough inter-rater reliability or, you know, individuals that are like right on the same page to be able to have a lot of precision between a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or a 4. But we do know we want our students to be at that 3 and 4 level rubric level when we are doing the observations. No matter how I'm deeming my observation, we want all of our students at the 3 and 4. So I'm going to use that statement, the percent of observations for all students at 3 and 4s increased from 56% in baseline to 63% in trial 1. Again, I'm just stating the facts. I'm not giving any reasoning, or I'm just, what do we see in the data? And for trial 1, and for this changes for all students, you're going to have probably just a single statement, unless I know, Mike, you have helped teachers look even further into this top part. Okay, so if I see changes from 3s to 4s also. So we had a change from 20% 3s to 4s in engagement to 46% 3s and 4s in engagement. I can look up here and see the number or the percent of 3s and 4s. I can see my 3s went from 16% to 37%. My 4s went from 4% to 9%. So I can look a little bit deeper at the data, but as you're starting out, I would really just stick with that, going from 1s and 2s to 3s and 4s. And as you become more familiar with or skilled with the data, you can help your teachers look deeper into the movement between those rubric levels. And then switching over to the other side, and I didn't say this, but everything in yellow is engagement, and that's where we're starting. And then blue will be down lower when we look at academics. So we do everything for engagement first, and then we kind of repeat the whole thing for academics afterwards. And then we go into changes for student groups. So this is where in my impact, this is where I use a filter and choose one of my demographic groups. I'm going to choose an IEP. I can also add a comparison here. And in the data collector, you will be able to look at the same information after you do your analysis to know IEPs. So now I can start making statements about what did it look like for 3s and 4s from my students with IEPs, and what did it look like for engagement for students without IEPs? What was the change there? And I can make those statements. Students with IEPs had increased engagement, evidenced by an increase in percent 3s and 4s from 41 to 69. Students with no IEPs had increased engagement, evidenced by increase in percent 3s and 4s from 59 to 62%. So I can start seeing whether I'm having a different effect on students who have different demographics. You can see that we don't worry about having proper English here. So don't grade for grammar on your teachers who are participating in the trials. We don't need to add that cognitive load to them as well. And then basically I go through any of the student groups who are important to us. Perhaps I'm in a school district who is a very homogeneous school district. We have school districts in CSA that are really, honestly, super homogeneous and they don't have differences in race or ethnicity. So if that's not one of the areas that is an issue for your school, or if that's not something that is a demographic difference for you, then don't feel like you have to use all of the demographics that are in the example, okay? And then this is where you are doing that analysis piece. Like, what did you learn about our, not analysis, what's the third?
Hypothesis.
Nope, not the one in between the data and is it analysis?
So, yes,
Okay, so let's see. Yes, we did invest, now we're clarifying,
Clarifying.
sorry.
Yep.
So here's the clarifying. What did you learn about student engagement? Our findings show that collectively clear learning goals recruited more engagement for some groups of students. Okay, so I just want to make a statement about that. I'm going to repeat the same process for academics. Again, it's blue. And then finally, not finally, but next, teachers are going to look at their individual data. So each teacher makes a copy of the data analysis tool. Because now each teacher is going to look at whether they had students with increases, decreases, or changes from their baseline to trial one. So teachers can start looking at their own practice. And the place that you find that in the My Impact is looking at the criteria averaged by student. And this shows the number, and each teacher would be choosing their own classroom. And this shows the number of students in engagement with an increase, the number with a decrease under that criteria one makes personal choices, and the ones with no change. And teachers will then transfer that information into their own data analysis sheet. When they do that, they can consider their findings through that clarifying process by answering the question, when comparing baseline to trial one, how has implemented the trial strategy focus affected my indicator students' engagement? And they make this statement, my students showed a greater increase in engagement than the consolidated group. After digging deeper into my student data, when I had more precise goals, my students were more engaged. So I can start identifying where in my classroom my effect was. And that leads to additional deeper conversations within the group. Now, you can take this next table out if you want to. This is if you want to get really deep into your data and you want to do some comparison of trial 2 to trial 3, trial 1 to trial 2. But if I'm in trial 2, I'm just going to do baseline to trial 2. So you can determine whether you want to go further than that baseline to trial 1 and baseline to trial 2, if you want to do like a trial 2 to trial 3 also. But if you're not going to do that, get rid of this table in the one that you prepare for your teams so they don't get confused. Then the final part of this analysis tool is for teachers to reflect on their educator practice. So again, I'm going to repeat, there's 3 components to the analysis tool. There's the consolidated data where teachers are looking at their team information. Then there's the individual data where they look at their individual team stuff in both engagement and academics. And then finally, they're going to reflect on educator practice. So these questions are meant for teachers to be thinking about, number 1, how their strategy has impacted their students. And number 2, how has this process of implementation trials impacted their ability to support student learning. So describe your current level of skill using the UDL strategy, and then they would make a statement here. How has implementing the UDL strategy influenced your perception of your ability to impact student learning? Make their statement there. How effective was your design for learning to grow students' ability to be, and we're going to change this to learners with agency to reflect the new 3.0 guidelines. And then how has collecting observational data impacted your classroom practice? So again, this fits nicely with an SLO process. This is a good artifact for them to keep, but it's also a great historical piece for teachers' reflection, so they can look back at how much they've grown. You can also use that as a mentor to be able to understand how your work is impacting teachers. And then finally, districts can use that in their end of the year district reflection meeting to be able to tell the story to a next cohort the next year. All right. And then finally, part of the reflection meeting after every trial is going to be a reminder to administer that UDL educator practices and student learning survey so that we can understand how the trials process is impacting your educators. And we just get some consolidated analysis from your teams to understand what they saw in that student learning. And as you complete the trial one, I will be turning back to you all of your district data so that you can also have the district data to keep telling the story about how these trials have been impacting teachers and students in your district. So what we're going to do now is we're going to give you a bit of planning time, a little less than we had planned on, just because we went a little long there. So let's do 10 minutes of planning time. We'll put you into breakout rooms with your district. And then we'll come back and quickly go over our next steps and check out. Any questions before we send you off into your breakout rooms? We want to just close out this session first with a thank you for all of you who were able to make it. It's very good to see everybody understand the progress that you're making. So as we do at the end of each of our mentor user groups, please click on the session survey that's in the end of the agenda. I'll just share my screen. And I think Christine was just putting that in the chat as well. So if you please take that survey. Our next meeting date is going to be January 15th at 9 o'clock. So we'll be back to our normal cadence of Wednesdays at 9 o'clock. And then please do that project partner requirements. That includes completing that UDL implementation trials participation log if you weren't able to today. And as a reminder, administer that educator practice and student learning survey during your trial one reflection meeting. Now is a great time to put it into that running agenda so it doesn't get forgotten. I can tell you that's something that I always am forgetting. And if you do forget it like I do, then please send your teams and teachers a follow-up email asking them to complete that survey before they come back together for trial 2 planning or the trial 2 data collection. All right, well, we really appreciate you spending time with us. If you missed anything from today, again, it'll be about a week and the video will be available as a link at the top of our agenda next to the date. So if there's somebody that's in your district that wasn't able to make it today, you can help them find that video link to be able to get the information that you got today. Thank you so much for your work, and we will see you on January 15th at 9 a.m.
And what we also want to wish all of you a very happy holiday season and a very happy new year. The next time we all get together will be 2025. So please enjoy the holidays. Have a wonderful opportunity to spend with friends and family, and we will see you in the new year. Bye, everyone.
Take care, everybody.